What did I say last night about Escher? What's this say? Quote, right at the eastern part of this particular area, I would cite for your attention a security fence arrangement where we think one of the possible nuclear storage sites exists. They are producing concrete in arches for mounding of structures, probably to go underground. End quote. But while that might seem shocking, there's something else that's even more shocking. First of all, there is a total of 12 of these Komar-class guided missile configured PT boats. Why is that important? Because there's a deficit of 12 when it comes to the 24 to 22 on the page before. But even more than that, how did the Soviets get 40 MiG-21s, 20 IL-28s, and 39 MiG-21s to Cuba without anybody noticing beforehand? Then it goes into the IL-28, the Beagle, and how there were 21 crates, but only one had been assembled. You know what that means? That's 20 that have yet to be assembled. Then he goes on to say here, I would like to show you, quote, I would like to show you an example or two of the medium-range ballistic missile launching sites. If you could get one for me, Ray. First off, while we're getting that out, I would like to show you the MiG-21 buildup. This is shown here at the center at Santa Clara Airfield, which is 10,400 feet long, and here are 16 fish beds in this locale, 12 fish beds in here. Those are the MiG-21s, 11 more over here, a total of 39, and some 15 MiG-15 and 17s as well. The field is well developed, and the craft are flying. We have seen some in operation taking off of the field during the course of our operation. Then he goes down to say there are 17 crates in here standing side by side and 4 that are starting to be unloaded, and one of the aircraft has come into full form, and it is indeed an IL-28 jet-like bomber. Again, how did they get over 90 functioning Soviet aircraft to Cuba with no one noticing? My question apparently wasn't the same. First question, are there any questions? First question, what's the radius of the IL-28? Okay, this is notable because that information was provided by McCone. But then later, in the same session, McNamara says this, quote, during this period, we will provide air cover over the sea lanes used by U.S. merchant ships in and around Cuba. It's entirely possible that during this period, the MiG-15s, 17s, and 19s, which weren't discussed today, but of which there are substantial numbers in Cuba, or the MiG-21s, will attack certain U.S. merchant ships. End quote. Weren't they just discussed by McCone? Are we getting to something here? McNamara later says, it requires the call up from the reserves of C-119 squadrons. Several hundred aircraft must be assembled for that purpose, in addition to the aircraft on active duty, ... But going on downward, now we have Russell. Quote, do you see from your position in the Pentagon where we're getting better prepared militarily vis-a-vis the Soviet forces by delaying and waiting, putting this thing over till next year? You put these tired old B-45s, 47s, or B-49s, whatever they are, the McNamara says 47s. 47s, all of them already wore out. Now you put them on 24-hour alert, and that's most of our force. That's 3/4 of it, remember. Over 2/3. You have, unclear, you don't have anything. And you just can't depend on these missiles, our missiles. Our intermediate missiles won't intercept. But you think you're running in our favor? He says, I do. Russell says, what do you base it on? McNamara says, the B-47s and B-52s we have prepared for airborne alert by procuring, as you know, the additional spares necessary to support an airborne alert. I have no doubt whatsoever that we can maintain an airborne alert indefinitely without degrading our force. ... Is there some other substantial qualitative difference in pairing B-47s with MiG-15s, 17s, 19s, and 21s? Here we go. Maybe this is part of the question. And McNamara says this. May I say this? You might question the missiles, but you can't question the IL-28s. They have. And then Hollick says, what are they? What's an IL-28? And McNamara says, jet bombers, the old type. 1950 vintage, still used in the Soviet forces, but jet engine, 4-engine bombers capable of carrying 4,000-pound bomb loads, 740 miles radius of action. So then he goes on, McNamara says, it's certainly offensive, it certainly is, but we haven't seen it with the warhead actually in place, and you might possibly have some question in your mind about it, but you can't have any question in your mind about the IL-28 bombers. These, without any doubt whatsoever, are offensive weapons. Now, at this time, only one of those IL-28 bombers has been assembled, but presumably there are 19 already on site ready to be assembled, correct? However, all the MiGs are already prepared and ready to go. And the major concern here is what? He's saying 47s. And so this is before they're being replaced by, what does he say? Yes, I heard. The newer intercontinental range B-52, right? So the newer intercontinental range B-52 hasn't quite been called up, but the 47s are on standby, right? Is that the whole fucking point here? How did they get 89 MiGs to Cuba, and nobody really seemed to care until they'd already assembled an IL-28 that was capable of carrying a 4,000 megaton warhead? That's the whole fucking point, isn't it? Let me ask you, how many MiGs did the Americans get to tear down and scrap? Any?